Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, IIT Roorkee. He has done his PhD in the area of millimeter wave integrated circuits from IIT Delhi, MTech and BTech from University of Allahabad. He held the position of postdoctoral research fellow at NRD Super Broadband Research Center, Institute of Technology, Japan, as well as Center for Applied Research in Electronics, IIT Delhi. Professor Pathak is a member of Technical Committee on Terahertz Technology and Applications, IEEE, and Research Advisor, Nanyang Academy of Sciences, Singapore. He is serving as an associate editor of IEEE Access and Advanced Electromagnetics. He was invited by Indian National Academy of Engineering for delivering invited talk in 9th National Frontiers of Engineering Symposium for Young Indian Engineers held at Jodhpur. He is recipient of DST Fast Track Research Grant for Young Scientists, IETE, Indian National Research Fellowship, and DRDO, Government of India Junior Research Fellowship. He has served as Vice Chairman of IEEE, Microwave Theory and Techniques Society, Faculty Advisor, IEEE, IIT Roorkee Student Branch, and Member Executive Committee of IEEE, Uttar Pradesh Section. Professor Pathak has guided 13 PhD theses and supervised more than 45 MTech dissertations in the area of RF through terahertz integrated circuit systems and sensors. He has published more than 180 papers in reputed international journals and conferences, co-author of a book, CRC Press, several book chapters, and has won US patent to his credit. Professor Pathak's current research interests are millimeter wave, terahertz integrated circuits and systems, and non-invasive sensors. Pathak sir, we are honored to have you with us. Thank you, sir. Welcome to the forum. We are looking forward for an enriched interactive technical session. The topic of this session is terahertz integrated circuit systems and sensors. It's over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. My screen is visible to all of you?
Sir, yes,
Okay.
it is visible.
So, in this talk, I will discuss some issues and directions related to terahertz integrated circuit systems and sensors. Most of the work which I am going to discuss here, that is carried out by my own students, doctoral students in past. So in case you have any query in future, you can approach me through this email ID, which is official email ID available at IIT Roorkee website also. This is the outline of my talk. I will start from the motivation for carrying out research in this area. Then what are the issues related to the design of terahertz circuits? Some solution approach I will discuss. I will discuss the concept of plasmonics, then some examples of recently designed circuits using the concept of plasmonics, and finally the conclusions. So when we use the term RF through terahertz portion, basically what it refers. Earlier, we are familiar of the term radio frequency, then different bands like UHF, VHF, SHF, then microwave, millimeter wave. So different sub-millimeter wave, different nomenclatures exist in literature. But now more effort is going on toward unifying everything. So when I'm going to use a radio frequency term RF, actually I'm referring the entire frequency range from 9 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz. This entire range is referred as RF. It's not that some frequency range which is below 5 gigahertz or 6 gigahertz. So it's not like that. Entire frequency range from 9 kilohertz up to 300 gigahertz can be termed as RF. Old nomenclature you are familiar with, that is microwave, which is usually given a range from 1 gigahertz to 30 gigahertz. Although it doesn't give a correct picture when you are using microwave. So if you think in terms of the wavelength, you will get a better picture from this entire frequency range of 1 gigahertz to 30 gigahertz. So if you try to find out the wavelength, you will see that at 1 gigahertz it is 30 centimeter and 30 gigahertz it is 1 centimeter. So whenever you are using the term microwave, it is basically centimeter wave. So it is a centimeter wave because the wavelength lies in centimeter. So next obvious nomenclature is millimeter wave, which starts from 30 gigahertz and goes up to 300 gigahertz. So that is because your wavelength is from 10 millimeter to 1 millimeter. So if you are using microwave, please try to understand that this is nothing but the centimeter wave because wavelength is in centimeter. Then there are different standards frequency range which are allocated for various services. One day-to-day application is the wireless LAN applications, where you can find out different bands. One band is at 2.4 gigahertz band, another is the 5 gigahertz band. 5 gigahertz band you can find 5.15 to 5.35, so roughly around 200 megahertz bandwidth is allocated. Then another band, 5 gigahertz band is present from 5.725 to 5.85 gigahertz. So, but this second band is very close to one ITS band, Intelligent Transport System band, which is available at 5.9 gigahertz. 75 megahertz bandwidth is allocated for transport, intelligent transport system. So vehicular systems. Then if you go towards the higher frequency, you can find that there are frequency bands for traffic radars. One of the emerging application of traffic radar, that is 24.025 gigahertz to 24.225 gigahertz. One more band for traffic radar is at 24 gigahertz itself, and that is from 24.050 to 24.250. And then you can find another band in Ka band, that is 33.4 to 36 gigahertz. Then sub 6 gigahertz, there is a 5G allocation. 200 megahertz bandwidth is allocated for 5G applications, and that is especially in India. This is from 3.4 to 3.6. Then several millimeter wave bands, and most of the activity, if you see commercial activity for 5G, you will see that this Ka band is highly densely allocated frequency band. Ka band means 26 to 40 gigahertz band. So you can find out worldwide most of the activities, although other frequency range they are allocated after Ka band also, but if you go through the allocated frequency range in United States, you can see it is 27.5 to 28.35 or 37 to 38.6, then 38.6 to 40. So all in the Ka band. Then one more band which is actually extension of the license-free band present at 60 gigahertz. So in United States, it is from 57 to 64. So 7 gigahertz bandwidth is unlicensed band allocation. So that is now extended up to 64 to 71 also. So 7 gigahertz more has been added. So you can get that wireless activity. Now you can go from 57 to 71. Then there are European unions. They are also having very hectic activity from 24.25 to 27.5, 31.8 to 33.4, 40.5 to 43.5. Then China is there. You can say that mostly Ka-band activities are there. Japan, they are also using this Ka-band, lower portion of Ka-band. Then Korea is there. So if you see that at present there are hectic activities, wireless activities that is started especially in Ka band or millimeter wave frequency range. So other things you are familiar that old nomenclature we were using, how these frequency range they are uh, allocated. So when we talk about terahertz, so terahertz basically starts, it is again divided into two parts, sub terahertz and then terahertz portion. So usually sub terahertz, that is roughly from 100 gigahertz, and it goes up to, sometimes people say that 300 gigahertz, or you can go up to 500 gigahertz. So roughly from 0.1 to 0.5 terahertz is referred as sub terahertz region, or you can say that this is also a sub-millimeter wave region, old nomenclature sub-millimeter wave, that is above 100 gigahertz, and it goes up to 400, 500 gigahertz frequency. So that is sub-millimeter wave or sub-terahertz. And terahertz usual definition, that is again varying. You can find various literature, text reference books, where you will see that people are referring 0.1 to 10 terahertz frequency as entire range at terahertz, or somewhere it is 0.3 terahertz to 3 terahertz. So this is still not very much clear, that there is no hard and fast rule. So you will also find somewhere that people are using 0.3 to 30 terahertz, that is a terahertz range. So still things are in flexible mode. You can see that there are several efforts like Federal Communication Commission (FCC) of United States. They had allocated some frequency range in this sub-millimeter wave frequency band for commercial activities. For example, 275 to 300 gigahertz in Europe, above 275, that is open for some activities, for example, mobile, satellite, wireless link, etc. So you know that why people are attracted towards such a very, very high frequency. You know that huge bandwidth is allocated close to such frequencies. When you have seen that when wireless activities, which are mostly concentrated in say less than 6 gigahertz frequency range, and there the allocated bandwidth is few megahertz, 100 megahertz, maximum 100, 200 megahertz, that is the maximum bandwidth. But here you can go several gigahertz. So that is the attractive part. And demand is continuously increasing. More and more bandwidth requirement is continuously increasing day by day. So that is another region that people are moving towards millimeter wave or terahertz frequency range. One of the important part and from the terahertz side is the terahertz wireless links. They exhibit an intrinsically short path length, and most of the communication is line of sight communication. So commercial application of terahertz communication link maybe for very high data rates applications for short distance. So that may be one of the area, because people had already started talking about 6G. So there terahertz may play a very crucial role. People may not go directly in actual terahertz mode, but sub terahertz is immediately going to influence the entire thing. Sub terahertz means it is up to 300 or 400 gigahertz, and mostly for last mile applications. Terahertz communication systems with gigabit or higher data rates, they could enable a wide variety of high bandwidth applications, including wireless extensions of broadband access, fiber optical networks, wireless extension of high speed wired LAN, a wireless bridge between lower data rate wireless LAN and high speed fiber optical networks. So for all these applications, it can be used. Not everything is very, say, attractive. There are issues, several issues are there, and you know that terahertz communication link is highly directional link. But the advantage is it is a very secure link, and you can face lower attenuation if you compare it with infrared in certain atmospheric conditions, for example, fog. So if fog is there, terahertz frequencies, they are less attenuated in comparison to IR. Time varying fluctuations, which is scintillation, in the real refractive index of the atmospheric path, they lead to scintillation effect in wireless communication. So for terahertz radiation, these scintillation effects are smaller than IR radiation. So it means again terahertz may provide longer link in compared to wireless IR infrared. There have been relatively few studies of either analog or digital data transmission using terahertz radiation to date. So not very huge amount of data you can find, but people have started thinking about this. So it means there is research scope, opportunity is there. The only issue is we have to develop affordable system. So if you can develop the system, this entire opportunity can be grabbed. So in terms of wireless cellular communication, as I discussed earlier, that when you are moving towards millimeter wave or terahertz small cell, you will see advantage like availability of larger bandwidth. So because B is directly proportional to the carrier frequency. But you will pay the price in terms of coverage. So coverage is inversely proportional to carrier frequency. So distance of communication will get reduced. Coverage is reduced. But data rate is very, very high because that is of the order of f naught cube bits per second. Communication data rate you can increase either by having more bandwidth or enhancing signal to noise ratio that you are aware, because Shannon's theorem, Shannon-Hartley theorem you can use. So from there you can see that data rate, that is bandwidth times natural log 1 plus SNR. So either you are changing SNR or you are changing bandwidth. But the bandwidth, more bandwidth is easily available at higher carrier frequency. So that's why people usually try to easily move towards that, while increasing SNR at such a high frequency is very, very difficult and very challenging. Where such high speed or high data rate that is required. So you can see number of applications. For example, if you see this picture, the first picture, so there are moving vehicles, buildings, they are connected with each other, television studios are there. So everything you can see that smart city, modern smart city, you can see that everything is wirelessly connected. And this is basically generating requirement of more and more data. more data rate is required because everybody wants seamless transmission. Nobody wants delay in transmission. So seamless transmission and uncompressed videos you want to download, you want to use, you want to transfer. So that's why the requirement of data rate is increasing day by day. This figure give you some calculation, mathematical calculation, that what happens if you are moving from 2K to 8K. If you are using a 2K HDTV, where pixels required 1920 by 1080, required data rate is 1.5 Gbps. And if instead of using 2K, if you are going for 8K, you require a data rate which lies from 24 Gbps to 144 Gbps. And in any case, you will not get such a high data rate at very, very lower frequency, microwave frequencies. So the only choice is you have to move to higher frequencies in millimeter wave or in terahertz. Similarly, another application, you can see that in medical science, and especially in corona time, you have seen that physically you cannot access everything, you cannot move. But for example, this picture shows that the doctors present in operation theater, they can take help of another expert which is located at some remote location, provided the video which is generated here is uncompressed and seamlessly, that is available continuously, it is available to other expert or doctor or surgeon, so that he can easily participate in the operation process. So this is one of the area where you need such a high data rate, uncompressed data rate, very clear picture, very clear video you need, so that expert can help timely. Few more applications that is related to, say, defense applications. You can see that helicopters or say other planes or fighter aircrafts, they also need very clear pictures. They want to scan everything, and then that scanning is creating huge data, and that much data they want to transfer continuously, seamlessly, without any delay. So in such cases also, again, requirement of very high data rate is arrived, and in order to meet those requirements, there is no other choice but to move or adopt millimeter wave frequencies or sub-terahertz frequencies, so that that requirement can be met. In India, although we are not so fast, but Japan, you can see Japan has already started in 2014. They drafted a regulation also in 2014 for use of 120 gigahertz band for certain services. So you can see that there are certain services which are mentioned here: amateur satellite, radio astronomy, Earth observations. So some bands, they were already allocated, and you can see that around 18 gigahertz bandwidth has been allocated by Japan for such services in past. So this slide shows you some other examples related to the requirement of data rates and how year by year this is increasing. Similarly, what happens when you are moving towards higher frequency side, what you expect from the data rate, increase in the data rate side, availability. One more attractive part is that power consumption per bit is decreasing if you are increasing data rate. So high data rate is basically useful in this case. So everything is not say advantage side. There are difficulties also, and that difficulties is basically because of the nature of the atmosphere. You can see that this is the attenuation versus frequency graph. This horizontal axis is in gigahertz. So when you plot the attenuation versus frequency, you can see that effect of atmospheric constituents, they are severe if you are operating at high frequency. So for example, oxygen molecules, you can see that oxygen molecule, they are having a peak close to the 60 gigahertz. Then another peak, you can see here close to 100 gigahertz. One more peak is there. Then there is effect of carbon dioxide. Then there is effect of rain, effect of water vapor. You can see that water vapor, fog. So everything, whatever the ozone, everything which is present in the atmosphere, they are affecting such high frequencies because wavelength is very, very small. So if you calculate what happens, how it is affecting the loss due to atmospheric rain, for example, 25 millimeter per hour, or fog, 60 gigahertz, it is around 27 dB, and if you measure at 400 gigahertz, it is around 26 dB, less than 60 gigahertz. And that is because 60 gigahertz, you see that there is absorption peak, so attenuation or loss is more. You can compute the, I hope you are aware of this Frisch equation, that received power, that is given by transmitted power plus transmitting antenna gain, receiving antenna gain, minus 20 log 4 pi RF divided by C. So this 20 log 4 pi RF divided by C, the free space loss, and you can see that proportional to F. So it means if you are increasing the frequency, loss, free space loss will get increased. So high frequency, you will get more loss. How to compensate this loss? In order to compensate this loss, the only thing you can do is you have to increase the gain of the antenna. If you are able to increase the gain of the antenna, you can reduce the effect of, minimize the effect of the increase in free space loss. That is possible. But to achieve that, you need a very, very high gain antenna. So if you want to compensate, you have to increase the gain. For example, at 120 gigahertz, the free space loss for 1 kilometer is 134 decibel. If you are using, instead of a 0 dBi antenna, use a 50 dBi antenna. What happens? This loss remains only 34 dB. So a 50 dBi antenna can compensate almost 100 dB free space loss. But the difficulty is how to design, how to get such a high gain antenna for transmitter as well as receiver side. So that is challenge, but it shows that it is possible. It is possible to compensate this loss, and if you can compensate, then you can use that frequency. So what are other challenges? Other challenges are how to generate and detect such high frequency, because we are talking about, say, starting from 30 gigahertz going up to 300 or 400 gigahertz. So the issue is how to generate the signal, and then if signal is available, how to detect the signal. It means transceiver system that comes into the picture, and affordable transceiver, affordable hardware, that is another challenge. So if you go through the literature, you will find that various techniques they are present, people have implemented in past. For example, terahertz problems, they are approached by optoelectronic methods also. So those who are in optical domain, they work in optics, they are reducing their frequency range from higher to lower side or increasing their wavelength, and they are approaching towards the terahertz. So whatever techniques they actually use to implement optical systems, they are trying to use the same with some modification to implement terahertz system. So one method is there, you can generate terahertz signals, you can detect terahertz signals with the help of optoelectronic techniques. Another method that is commonly used by RF designers, and that is the microwave frequency multipliers to generate terahertz signals and to detect terahertz signals. I hope you are aware of this technique, because if you have to generate, for example, 30 gigahertz signal, so one method is you can directly go and generate 30 gigahertz signal. The another method is you can design a very stable oscillator or signal generator at 3 gigahertz and then multiply it, say 10 times, multiply by 10 to achieve a 30 gigahertz signal, or boost its harmonics, because if 3 gigahertz signal you are generating as a fundamental, and if you are having various harmonics, the first harmonic fundamental is at 3, the first harmonic you will get at 6, second, that is the second harmonic, then third harmonic at 9. So if you are boosting the second harmonic at 6 gigahertz and then use the multiplier, multiply by 3 or multiply by 5, so that you can achieve 30 gigahertz. So that is the method that is based upon the multiplier use of various multipliers to generate and detect the signal. High electron mobility transistor, HEMT, they are very useful in such cases. Then another approach is use of vacuum electronics. You are familiar with the terms klystron, BWA, TWT, gyrotron. So all those methods, tubes, they can also be used. So there are a number of people who use that method to generate terahertz signals, especially very high power terahertz signals. Then there are FET or plasma based silicon MOSFET detectors for terahertz applications. And one more method that is emerging is the graphene plasmonic based sub-wavelength waveguides and terahertz plasmonic metamaterials or spoof plasmonics. So this is a newer technique where you are using graphene based ICs, you are designing graphene based ICs, or you are designing artificially engineered materials based circuits. So that approach that is also gaining popularity. In this talk, I will go into little detail into the graphene and spook plasmonic based integrated circuits. As I said earlier, this is one of the example that how to generate a wireless terahertz wireless link. Here, optical sub-terahertz generators, they are used. Then modulator is there. Then optical amplifier is there. Then photodetector, photodiode, photodetector hai. Then hemmed amplifier is there. After that, horn antenna is connected. Then lens, and then you will get the sub-terahertz signal. This is one method. Another method, with the help of various multipliers. So here you can see that a crystal, highly stable crystal oscillator. This is feeding input to phase logged DRO. And after that, you are using a multiplication, amplifying amplifier and multiplier, frequency tripler you are using. So then another tripler you are using. So in this way, you are getting here 150 gigahertz. When you are using another signal generator, mixing 150 gigahertz with signal 0 to 10 gigahertz, you are getting output which range from 290 to 310 and 50 microwatt. Similarly, receiver side, you can do that. You are receiving 290 to 310, then down convert here. You can process like that. So this is the multiplier approach. So there are certain research issues which need to be addressed for millimeter wave and terahertz systems. Number one, next generation RF communication and sensor system, they require miniaturized and reconfigurable components in order to reduce power consumption, cost, size, and weight. This is one of the requirement. Below 100 nanometer regime, copper interconnects have major limitations like signal and clock distortion, attenuation, impedance matching issues, crosstalk issues, power dissipation per unit area, and wave reflection and interconnect density. So these issues, they are more prominent if you are using designing a circuit which is for less than 100 nanometer. So as per the Moore's law, transistor density get doubled after every 18 months, but you cannot apply the same law for interconnects. And at such high frequency, usually what you do, most of the interconnects or connecting networks, they need to be analyzed with the help of Maxwell's equation instead of applying just a Kirchhoff's law. So when field theory comes into the picture, it poses another problem. Waveguides, they are basically dielectric waveguides. They provide appropriate alternatives, but you know that dimensions of the waveguide, they follow certain rules and regulations governed by Maxwell's equation. So they cannot be reduced beyond a certain limit, because if you do that and it is below cutoff, it will not support wave propagation through the guiding structure. So it means there are not only one-sided issues are there are a number of issues are there, and as a designer, one need to face all these issues. you know that these are the conventional transmission lines which are used to develop chips for microwave frequencies and as well as lower portion of millimeter wave frequencies. For example, microstrip line, coplanar waveguide. You are familiar with that. Suspended microstrip line, suspended strip line. So properties of these conventional microstrip, CPW and other lines which are defined on substrates with thickness in the hundreds of micron. They are well known and they can be obtained using accurate closed form expressions available in the literature. You can easily do that. But what happens when you are reducing the size of the substrate? Then these models, they fail to reproduce the characteristics of these planar transmission lines. So if the size is only few micrometer, size of the substrate, that is the thickness of the substrate is only few micrometer, then the same equations, they are not, you cannot use those equations to get the same result as you are frequently doing at lower frequencies. Lower means gigahertz. When a metallic ground plane followed by an insulating dielectric layer is deposited on top of a low resistivity silicon wafers, the loss properties of the line are decoupled from those of the silicon wafer. And this is the reason why properties are poor. So because of this reduced dimensions, which falls in nano domain, few micrometer dimensions, you need to find out and understand new phenomena, you or whatever is going on, how to overcome. So new techniques need to be developed to handle these issues. And if it is below 100 nanometer, nanoscale situation is worst. So waveguides or surface waveguides, they all suffer from the cutoff conditions. Actually, they provide alternatives. So you know this structure. This is a simple rectangular waveguide structure. And suppose the plate separation A is less than lambda 0/2. Remove this top and bottom plates, then A is still below cutoff. But because of the below cutoff nature, it will not support wave propagation. Then what will happen? Suppose you insert a rectangular strip, dielectric strip between these two parallel plates of a particular dielectric, known dielectric, then wave may propagate through this dielectric region, inserted dielectric piece, and outside region, which is the white region that is filled with the air, remains cut off. So in this way, you are able to handle the radiation losses. So because if there is any discontinuity in the structure, because of the discontinuity, wave radiates and it enters into the surrounding air region, and the surrounding air region is cut off. So radiation losses you can suppress. But the only issue is that this plate separation need to be less than lambda 0/2. And inside this dielectric, size is still more than lambda g/2. That's why only the inside the dielectric region, this blue dielectric strip, the wave is propagating. So it means it has still not solved our problem, because you cannot reduce the size beyond a certain limit. And suppose if you want to use this waveguide structure in below cutoff domain, for example, A less than lambda 0 by 2, as well as less than lambda g by 2, lambda g inside this blue dielectric region. Then what will happen? In normal circumstances, wave propagation is not possible. So not possible, it means you cannot use this structure. Is it possible to operate such kind of guiding structure in below cutoff era? And if you can do that, you will be able to reduce the size of the guiding structure. And that is required in order to minimize the size of the chip. So that is the difficulty. So how to answer this question, and you can find out the answer lies in the concept of plasmonics, which is valid actually at optical frequencies. So what happens at optical frequencies? For example, this is an optical fiber, optical waveguide or slab waveguide. You can see diameter is d. So if d is greater than lambda 0, greater than wavelength, then the modal field is confined inside this core region and wave is propagating. If you start decreasing the size d, suppose still it is equivalent to lambda 0, that is equal to lambda 0, still the core is guiding. But if you reduce d less than lambda 0, what will happen? This wave is not guided by the core. Rather, most of the energy is spreading outside the core. In RF microwave, we use the term cutoff. Below cutoff, what happens? Wave is not supported, not propagated, not guided by the guiding structure. Wave is spreading. And you can see here, wave is spreading outside the core region. Energy is more concentrated in the cladding region. It means you cannot reduce the size, diameter d below wavelength of the operating wavelength. But what happens in the case of plasmonics? In the case of plasmonics, if d is greater than lambda 0 of this particular mode, if d is greater than the wavelength of surface plasmon mode, what happens? You can see that more concentration in your core region. It's okay. If you start decreasing d, make it equivalent to lambda 0 of that mode, surface plasmon mode, still confined. But if you reduce this, still this is guided by this core region. And that is the beauty. Earlier, this was not, the guide was not able to guide the electromagnetic mode. But here, this reduced guiding structure can still confine and guide the electromagnetic signal, even if the diameter d is less than lambda 0 of surface plasmon mode. So it means it is possible. That possibility is there, provided you are able to excite this mode and this guiding structure is operating in this particular mode. If that is possible, then you can decrease the diameter below your operating wavelength and still you can guide it. So this phenomena basically that is referred as, in the literature you can see, in microwave we usually talk about the cutoff condition, and corresponding to the cutoff condition, usually lambda by 2d kind of conditions that exist in optics, and that condition is known as diffraction limit. So below diffraction limit, propagation is possible. So if you think in terms of RF microwave technology, this is below cutoff guiding structures which are guiding electromagnetic signal. So beyond the diffraction limit, this is the basically diffraction limit lambda by 2a or 2d. If d is the diameter, that basically give you the diffraction limit. So that is same as the cutoff condition. When we talk about the cutoff condition of a rectangular waveguide, below cutoff rectangular waveguide, you will see. So below cutoff guide will not guide electromagnetic signal, but in this case, that is possible, and that is the contribution of plasmonic concept, that you can reduce the size below cutoff or beyond the diffraction limit. It keep on reducing, but still you will be able to contain electromagnetic signal and guide it. So how it is possible? Because I was talking about surface plasmon polar-return mode. So SSPP, this is basically a surface mode. And SSPP, they are electromagnetic modes coupled to the collective electron oscillations propagating along the interface between dielectric and metallic materials, with a negative real part of relative permittivity at the optical and near infrared frequency spectrum. But where is the main issue? This you can find in the literature also. This phenomena naturally occurs in metals, noble metals, for example, gold or silver, at optical frequency. But we are not operating at optical frequency. We are more interested at terahertz frequency or even lower millimeter wave frequency. Then what to do? Because there is no such effort. Because the metal we have like a perfect conductor, while their optical frequency metals, these metals, they behave like a plasma. So that phenomena is not possible at lower frequency. So you cannot use that surface plasmon concept at terahertz or millimeter wave or microwave frequency. Then what is the alternative? What is the possibility? How to use that? So there is some idea, and that idea lies in the concept of spoof surface plasmon polar-return, SSPP, and also the graphene plasmonics. This is the Drude model basically used. Instead of this Drude model is for this defining the permittivity of metals, and you can see that epsilon infinity minus omega p. You can search from the literature Drude model for metals, Drude Lorentz model for metals. You will find this model that is well documented. You can plot it. So how to adopt this plasmonic concept from optical to terahertz and RF region? That is one of the major challenge. If you can do that, you can use this novel concept at your desired frequency. And why there is difficulty? Why this is naturally not present at terahertz frequency? Because at terahertz frequency, wavelength is longer than optical, right? The deep subwavelength confinement offered by plasmonics allow objects well below this limit to be sensed and imaged. Metals commonly employed in the visible part of the spectrum for supporting SSPP, such as gold and silver, they are having significantly different properties in terahertz regime, which makes them less suitable for sustaining SSPP at a flat interface. Far below their plasma frequency, these materials, they have significantly larger negative real and positive imaginary part of the permittivity, and more closely they resemble a perfect electric conductor. So usually we talk about whenever there is a gold or silver or copper, they are perfect conductors. So they are not behaving like plasma. So if they are not behaving like plasma, you cannot use the plasmonic concept itself. So why this perfect conductor approach create trouble? Higher conductivity means that an SSPP electric field only slightly penetrates the metal, causing it to be loosely bound to the surface and exhibit very, very poor confinement. And you will lose most of the advantage which you achieve at optical frequency. So there are two approaches. The first, to replace the metal with a semiconductor whose lower free carrier density cause its plasma frequency to fall in the terahertz band. And the second approach is to use metals whose surface has been textured so that electric field effectively penetrates further into the metal side of the interface. So either use textured metals or spoofed metal, that you are printing some pattern over the metal structure, metallic structure, so that you can bring down the plasma frequency of the overall structure in your desired operating frequency range. Or instead of using metals, you can use semiconductor, because in semiconductor, this plasma frequency, this can be managed. If you see this omega p square, this is plasma frequency, which is given by Ne square divided by epsilon 0 m. So N, the concentration. With the help of doping, you can change the concentration. If you can change the concentration, you can change the occurrence of omega p that you can control. So apart from these two, people have found that in graphene, plasmonic effect exists. So you can use, instead of semiconductor or metals, textured metals, this is the third option, that is the graphene, where you can observe this plasmonic concept. Dielectric graphene dielectric system, they also accommodate a TM plasmonic mode. The plasmon wave vector or momentum q in graphene, this can be 2 orders larger than free space momentum, which translates to a confinement volume 10 to the power 6 times smaller than the diffraction limit. Such extreme light confinement effect makes graphene an attractive platform for nanophotonics in terahertz to mid-infrared frequency range. So you can see here whatever we were discussing. You are aware of the properties of the graphene, that is given by the sigma, because it is dependent upon mu c as well as the temperature. Graphene monolayers support ultra-confined surface plasmon polariton waves at terahertz frequencies with moderate loss and strong field localization and confinement. So we are using this graphene based integrated circuits. How to design use the graphene based concept of graphene to design integrated circuits at terahertz. So we will discuss some examples, starting with the modeling of transmission lines. So for example, this is one of the published work where people have analyzed graphene based waveguide structures, parallel plate waveguide structure. You can see that there are this is a metallic parallel plate waveguide structure, and this is a graphene parallel plate waveguide structure. So that is referred as graphene parallel plate waveguide, GPPWG, and this supports dominant quasi TEM mode with no cutoff frequency, and this is similar to MIM plasmonic waveguide. So this some mathematical analysis that is also reported by various authors. You can skip this also. So various graphene plasmonic waveguide based structures, they were analyzed. So this is the parallel plate waveguide structure. In between these two graphene layers, there may be air or maybe dielectric. So what you can do, you can modify one plate of this parallel plate waveguide structure, and instead of a homogeneous dielectric, you can use a combination of dielectric here. So you can see this is the figure number C, where you are using a lossy silicon backed by a ground plane. Then silicon dioxide is deposited and a graphene strip is deposited here. Then this is the similar to your microstrip line. This is the nanostrip line, graphene based nanostrip line, and this is C, graphene plasmonic nanostrip waveguide structure. Then if you go to the D, this is graphene plasmonic parallel coplanar waveguide structure. Then this E, this represents suspended structure. So you can reduce the loss with the help of this structure. So this E is graphene plasmonic suspended nanostrip waveguide structure. And in this F, you can see that a ground plane is also present, which was not present in D. So this is graphene bagged coplanar graphene plasmonic coplanar waveguide structure, because there is graphene is also present at the as a ground plane, just like conductor bagged CPW. So graphene bagged graphene CPW. You can electromagnetically model the plasmonic nanostrip waveguide, and see, if you have to model this as a transmission line, what will happen? You can represent its equivalent circuit with the help of characteristic impedance and propagation constant. So this Z0 and gamma, they were extracted with the help of simulation, electromagnetic simulation, and then you can see some formula that is also developed for beta or gamma as well as Z0, and you can see here these are the graphs obtained, and this is the normalized phase constant, this is characteristic impedance, this is normalized attenuation constant. Closed form expressions, these are the closed form expressions which are used to which were developed for this particular transmission line. This is also representing the same equation. Then this is suspended nanostrip waveguide. electromagnetic modeling that was carried out, and then from the obtained results, equations which are developed, and these equations you can use later in order to develop a simulator or any other existing simulator. These can be used, so they serve that purpose. Similarly, this is the CPW, graphene based CPW, graphene plasmonic coplanar waveguide. This is graphene bagged graphene plasmonic coplanar waveguide. Then another concept I was discussing, that with the help of textured metals, you can bring down the plasma frequency in terahertz domain or any other frequency, a desired frequency range. So this concept I will briefly explain what is there. So basically, in 2004, Pendry he proposed, and you can see from this particular paper published by J.B. Pendry, that is mimicking surface plasmons with structured surfaces. So this geometrical structure which are printed here, so geometry A and D, they can be used to find out the wave number of the SSPP along the interface. And you can see that K parallel, it is dependent upon A and D both. And A and D, they are under designer's control. So that's how the relationship, the propagation constant, they are basically controlled. And just by changing the geometrical parameters, you can change the occurrence of plasma frequency. How this structure, if you compare with the help of microstrip line, so you can see here what happens at the bend. This is a model, that is the Genline model of an SSPP transmission line with bend, and you can see that this figure B basically compares that what is the ratio of the field E by E max in the case of microstrip or microstrip with substrate, or this SW transmission line. So what happens, that is the KY, if KY is increasing, this KY will increase alpha T. So this will increase the electromagnetic field decay faster, and ultimately more electromagnetic confinement is possible. So if you compare the SSPP transmission line with a regular microstrip transmission line, you will see that in SSPP almost 19 dB more confinement is possible. So in this simulation, you can see that this A is a spoof SSPP transmission line and near E field distribution. This B is a conventional microstrip line, and if you compare the B and C, you see that the B field is not so tightly confined, while in C confinement is very, very high. So this is the advantage of using spoof concept. You can reduce the mutual coupling because more confinement is possible in SSPP, so that will ultimately reduce mutual coupling. So it is observed that two SSPP transmission lines, they have much less mutual coupling, 19 dB less mutual coupling, or you can say that more confinement. then conventional TEM mode transmission lines, for example, microstrip. So how you define the spoof transmission line? So it is based upon unit cell. So first you will analyze a unit cell, its dispersion diagram. So different unit cells you can see here, and each unit cell they are analyzed to find out its dispersion characteristics, that is frequency versus ky dot p by pi. So this characteristics, and then from there you can use, and you can see that whether this one is useful or another one is useful, and you can develop some matching kind of network. So these are the various unit cells, and this is a back-to-back transition. So this a TEM line, microstrip line, and you are using a SMA connector to excite quasi TEM mode here, and then with the help of this transition, this quasi TEM mode is converted into the SSPP mode, and then other side it is again SSPP mode is converted back to quasi TEM mode. So this is the simulated and measured characteristic of this transition. And since omega p plasma frequency, it is dependent upon the geometrical parameter. Therefore, you can, by choosing a suitable geometrical parameter, you can bring down or you can use any omega p depending upon your requirement. So it's not necessary that omega p lies only in optical frequency, because naturally for natural plasmons, surface plasmons, it lies in optical frequency. But with the help of this concept, SSPP concept, since the design parameters, geometrical parameters, they are under the designer's control, you can bring down omega p at your desired frequency. So this is another transition you can see. This is for analysis was also carried out for terahertz. You can see first you will analyze unit cell, different type of unit cells, then a back-to-back transition that was also designed. So this is a back-to-back transition. Then this is a spoof surface plasmon Polton based ring resonator. You can see the ring resonator at lower frequency, its response is also measured. And this is SSPP based vector loaded reconfigurable bandpass filter. So this is again around 5 to 6 gigahertz maximum. So this is and the BPF. This is SSPP based tunable dual mode resonator. This is SSPP based circle tunable bandpass filter. This is SSPP transmission line coupler, which are developed over the CMOS, that is reported in 2015 by Liang et al. So these are some of the results which they have published, and this you can see the photograph, the periodic structures you can see, that is SSPP unit cells you can easily identify. So this you can read yourself. So finally, I think we can conclude like this, that we discussed the motivation and advantage for using terahertz frequency range in wireless communication. And we also discussed possible options for developing terahertz integrated circuits, such as plasmonics. So both spoof as well as graphene based plasmonics, they are described in detail with examples of modeling of transmission lines and mode converters, couplers, and filters. So I think allotted time was only up to 2:15. So I have to stop here. If you have any query, let me know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the elaborative talk on terahertz integrated circuit systems and sensors. Motivation for using millimeter wave terahertz small cell, general trends in wireless communication, hardware for generation and detection of terahertz wave systems for terahertz wireless, and major part of your presentation is research issues need to be addressed for millimeter and terahertz systems. So thank you very much. Thanks for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.
Dear participants, the session is open for discussion now. You may interact with the speaker. If you have any questions, you can ask or you can write in the chat box. Miss Kavita.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have one question. Using this plasmonic technique, can we can we use the technique MMIC for designing the this transceiver circuit for the terahertz reach?
Actually, see, the concept is
Mm-hmm.
that whenever you are designing MMIC,
Yes, sir.
there you will use metal tracks, right?
Yes, sir.
Metal tracks, they are available. They will be
Yes.
used. Interconnects you will use. So if you remember at lower frequency, what you do, you design as a CPW, right? So
Yes, sir.
those CPW, they will be designed with the help of this SSPP or plasmonic concept. What happens if there is an interface between a dielectric and metal that is present and a wave is launched along that? So how to reduce the size? All those issues, they are handled by the plasmonic concept. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So transmission line, you are aware that this is just like a microstrip or CPW, but the only difference it occurs if you are suppose using a spoof. So you have to insert the spoof structure in the transmission line section used over your chip. If it is CPW, so CPW you will made in SSPP. Or if you are using graphene, then you will, instead of using, for example, gold, you will use graphene. Okay. So only that is the difference. So plasmonic is a concept how wave is propagating. The wave is propagating in that particular mode, electromagnetic mode, surface waveguide mode,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Wave is guided by the surface interface. So that concept can be used.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Sir, one more question is there in the chat box. Which materials are compatible for biosensors at terahertz range?
See, materials, see, in this case, this is structures, spoof structures. They can be used for terahertz sensing, right? Instead of selecting a different material, the material is same as copper. As I have shown you in spoof, most of the spoof structures shown in the slide. You can use the same structure, same substrate, same RT-derived substrate, same copper metallization. There is absolutely no problem. But you have to change the geometry. You have to geometrical parameters you will change, and that is so that it operates, it behave like a spoof plasmonic structure instead of a regular metallic transmission line structure. So if you do that, you can use the
Hello,
same
yes, ma'am,
structure.
yes.
You can use the same structure for that purpose, for sensing purpose. Because you know that in a spoof or any plasmonic structure, fields are very tightly confined into the structure, right? So if anything, any variation is taking place close to the surface, that can be easily sensed. And that's why these plasmonic structures at optical frequency, they are used for sensing applications also. Any other query?
Dear participants, do you have any other queries? If you have any queries, you can put forward. Raise your hand.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Pathak, sir. There is no more questions in the chat box, so we can conclude this session. Sir, just a minute. I think
Yeah.
Swati S has raised a hand. Just a minute, sir.
No, Kasala, that question is already handled.
Okay. Thank you, Pathak, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, participants, there is a break for half an hour. Kindly join this session, next session, third session of today's schedule at 3:50. Okay?
It's 250, no?
Sorry, 2:50. G.